Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Marie and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset. All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I am Coach David Syvertsen. I'm here with my today's co-host, Coach Adam Ramsden, who is also the director of the first ever Bison Brawl at CrossFit Bison in Midland Park, New Jersey, first Saturday of October. It's going to be here before we know it. And today's episode is going to center around the three workouts that were just released, and then some other kind of like logistical things and planning that Adam and I have done to this point and what to expect in the future. But before we get into that, right after Adam put his finishing touches on these workouts, he took his family to Turks and Caicos. So after he planned your death in October, he took his family to the Caribbean. Ramsden, how was vacation?
It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Perfect weather, good, travel conditions. We flew out fine, had no problem at airports, which is usually like the most stressful part for me.
Absolutely.
So it was overall wonderful experience. Can't wait to do it again.
Speaking of stress, today's episode, we are going to talk about the Bison Brawl workouts, but I do want to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit prior to actually talking about the workouts and what to expect and some other inside looks there strategically. And we practice every single one of these workouts, or I should say we rehearse them, so we can give you some real feedback on what it's going to be like to do them. But Adam and I have met a few times. We're going to meet multiple times in the coming weeks and months to put on, the best possible show for you guys, the athletes. And I want to kind of talk about what was the goal of programming 3 to 4 tests of fitness in regard to a CrossFit competition. And Adam, when you look at a CrossFit competition from afar, you've done them, you've judged them, you've seen them, watched them as spectators. What do you think is the most important component or variable to look for when it comes to actually programming from a big picture perspective?
Well, I wanted to look at two things when we started talking initially about running a comp. And one was that I wanted it to be something that was exciting and fun for the athletes, but also something that was, if I can, like a spectacle for spectators. Whenever you're going to compete, you want other members of your gym, family, friends to come watch you, perform. And so as much as we want it to be a good test of fitness, I also wanted something that would be fun for people to watch and cheer for.
Yeah, that is a big deal, because if we were going to only look at, hey, let's find the fittest people here, you really don't have to get that complex with programming. You really could find the fittest person there usually by throwing a max capacity gymnastics test in, a max lift in, and a 45-minute run/row.
Yep.
Nobody's
going to do Karen.
Yes. Or Kelly, which is today's Bison Watt.
Yep.
But it's really, that's not fun to watch, and it's not fun to do. And from our perspective, you're trying to find two things here. You're trying to find people that want to sign up and do some fun workouts, right? You want them to be unique, meaning you don't want to use a templated way of testing fitness that you see from the games or other competitions. You kind of want to put your own spin on it within reason. And then you want to make it safe, right? That's a huge component that we're going to talk about that pretty much within every single workout once we get there. And logistically, there's a schedule, there's judging. We're going to get into that a little bit as well, with each workout, with each event, with each movement anyway. But I think what he touched on, we want spectators to come and have fun, because we've been to comps before as spectators, and not throwing shade on anyone, because this is not easy to do, to come up with these kinds of workouts. But there are some workouts you're kind of just like, this is kind of boring, especially if you're watching the same workout over and over for 2 hours, which is the case. So if you had to put a number on it, like 1 to 5, what is most important? Is it finding fitness, being safe, logistically doable, being unique, and spectator friendly? Where do you rank spectator? Middle, top, bottom? Where do you rank that?
It's got to be below the experience for the athletes. I think that's most important. But I also think it's got to be pretty high in your mind of where are people going to stand? Are they going to be able to see the athlete they came to cheer for, or are they going to be 4 zones away looking at them work out in the back of the gym? So although it's not, I think, the most important thing when you're initially thinking about the workouts, I think it has to be taken into account.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's nothing worse than going to a comp and not getting within 30 feet of an athlete that you drove an hour, in some cases 2 hours, to drive and cheer for. If you can't get to them, it's a little rough. And I know a lot of people here want the social media attention or the videos, and you want to be able to give that opportunity for spectators to come and really provide that for the athlete themselves. But that's another good point that you brought up. The athlete does need to be considered first. They are the ones that are paying. Our competition is $195 for a pair, and it's on the high side, and we're going to get into why we did that. But you need to make sure that they are going to get their bang for their buck. They're the ones doing the working out. They're the ones putting up the money up front. So I do think I agree with you. They go first. Their experience needs to be first, and then but you cannot push the spectators to the side.
Yeah, and selfishly, if an athlete has a good experience, they're going to go back to their gym and they're going to say, "Oh, I did this comp. It's so great. You got to do it next year."
Yeah.
That's how Barbells and Beers is every year. Every year people come back and they say, "It was so much fun. Everybody, the spectators are right there cheering you on. Everybody's screaming in your face. Like,
yeah,
I hit weights I never thought I could. You got to do it next year."
Yeah. Barbells and Beers. Shout out to Tim and Aaron from CrossFit 908. I've actually been talking to them. They're the ones that kind of like gave us the final nudge to go and do this, because they've been saying we should try to do this for a couple of years now. And I've said this before. I'll say it again. They do set the bar for just the quality of the competition, programming, logistics, and all the variables that we've already talked about. When it comes to testing these athletes, Adam, because at the end of the day, this is a competition, and it's beyond intramural level, in my opinion, right? We just had an intramural competition here at Bison this past Saturday. It's an intra-gym only, where the athletes from Bison, we make the teams, and and it's literally $10 to sign up, and the prizes are Twix bars and, fun little medals and a belt that Adam Hawkinson got made. It's for fun. And I actually say that at the whiteboard prior to the competition. It's, guys, this is more fun than competing. And it kind of just brings the mood down to like, all right, let's chill here. It's okay if my judge misses that. The Bison Brawl, is probably more competition than fun.
Yep.
It's a lot more expensive. There's going to be cash prizes. The judging is going to be a little bit more serious. We're, hiring a staff of people and vendors and photographers, it's going to be a much bigger spectacle. So because of that, what we're trying to find in a test of fitness is really important. Where the Bison Bowl is more like, hey, let's keep it safe and fun.
Mm-hmm.
Bison Brawl is all about, hey, we got to find the fittest people here. At the end of the day, that's what we are trying to do.
Sure.
What do you think needs to be tested over the course of 4 workouts for that to be the case?
I think you need to be obviously testing the main things: strength, gymnastics, capacity, grit, communication between partners. But it's also important that you don't structure your workouts where if you're the strength athlete and I'm the gymnastics athlete, you do all the strength, I do all the gymnastics. We want to set the bar where, you have to have capacity across the board, because that's what fitness ultimately is.
Right. How
good are you at everything? You can't just come in and say, okay, I'll do all the lifting, you do all the toes to bar, and we're good. We want to structure the workout so that we almost make that impossible. And we've got to strategize between the two of us of, all right, we know that this has got to be broken up a certain way. Like, where can we kind of transition so that, we get the best score possible.
Right. And that's a great way. That's a great leeway into what we eventually will talk about with the workouts, because I think what Adam's talking about right now, some of you might be like, ooh, what does he mean it's impossible to have a specialist type team? Like, hey, I have my gymnast and bodyweight athlete. I have my weightlifter. They will help you in certain sections, portions of the programming, but big picture, it's not going to help you to have a specialist. If anything, if it's a really extreme specialist, an extreme lifter, an extreme gymnast, it actually might end up hurting your team. And so do you think there's a lot of athletes out there that will only sign up for partner/team competitions and they'll avoid the individual stuff because they are a specialist. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but do you think, as we kind of get into, my personal year 12, year 13 of doing CrossFit, I've seen the team competitions really tick up in popularity and the individual popularity turn down. Do you think it has to do with some of that specialty athlete type stuff?
It could. I think it also has to do with the fact that team competitions are just more fun.
Yeah.
And so if we're looking at a broader range of not just competitive athletes, but athletes that are, looking to compete, but not making it their sole focus, then I think the team aspect kind of makes that more popular for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've always said that individual is probably a little bit more truth-telling.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, a little bit more fulfilling, but team is without a doubt fun. And that's where a lot of us stand with the stuff. Yes, I want to compete and test myself, but I want to have a good time doing it. Yeah. And so that's where I do think some of that popularity ticks up. Now, before we get to these workouts, what were some of the struggles that we had to account for? Because we have figured out what we want to test and how we want to test it and why we think that's important. And we've looked at all different, forms of organization and safety. But what were some of the things that really could get in the way, both big picture, but also exclusive to our gym and the space that we have here? What were some of the things that we had to account for?
Yeah, I think the first thing is obviously timing of the workouts. You can't make a workout too long. So if you're looking to test capacity, you have to figure out a way to do that without having a 25-minute AMRAP, of a workout. The layout of the gym is important, especially when we get back to talking about how important the spectators are and people being able to move around the gym, even though you need a lot of space with some of these workouts. So yeah, I mean, there are things that you have to take into account, especially in the specific space where you're doing the competition.
Yeah, one thing that we still have to kind of really figure out, and we have time, we know we have to figure this out, it's going to be a priority at some point, is the warm-up area. And I've been to countless competitions over my life, and especially at a local gym, that warm-up area more often than not is subpar compared to what you are used to when you go show up at your gym. Like, it's a very tight space, small amount of equipment. I've had comps where, like, you can't warm up prior to. Like, you just have to go out there and wing it. I've been outdoor. I've been indoor. I've been crowded. I've been not crowded. That's something that we really did have to kind of take into account for two reasons. The schedule is really tough to do, and that's going to be one of our biggest tasks once we start to see how many teams actually sign up. And we have contingency plans like, hey, if we get 40 teams, it could be this. If it's 80 teams, it's going to have to be this. But you can't put too many people on the floor if you're going to use space in your gym to warm up. So we've already started talking about maybe creating an outdoor warm-up area that would not have a rig, which is very common for warm-up areas and competitions. How much, because again, we're putting the athlete first. Mm-hmm. So we do say, hey, you guys have to warm up. Where do you kind of throw that into that whole, the whole gathering of, all right, who are we trying to take care of here? Because it would be a lot easier to use the gym for comp only so that spectators had more space and we could get more people in a heat.
Yep.
Where do you stack up the warm-up area, and how much do you think is really needed for warm-up area?
I mean, I think it's really important, especially when you're running a team competition, is that you have to count for double the people warming up every time, So, and you want to give them access to as much as you can, or as much equipment and as much space, because we do want to test fitness, and part of being fit is making sure that you're ready to perform at the time, when your heat's up. Mm-hmm. So I think it's super important. Obviously we're still looking at different ways to be able to let people warm up, but it's something to definitely take into account.
Next up, the judging. Okay, in my opinion, we were pretty safe with the workouts, movements. It's a ton of movements, by the way. We're going to get into that. A lot of movements, which I'm excited about. But we also have to take into account, we're going to be asking, 15, 20, maybe 25 volunteers to come and spend their Saturday counting reps over and over. And there were certain things that we didn't want to make them do, especially in year one, because bad judging can leave a really bad mark on a competition. It can ruin the reputation of the place that's hosting it. It could ruin the reputation of certain athletes, and I've seen that before. having good judges and bad judges. We did not put double unders into this one. And there was one workout where we really felt like double unders would have been a great movement for that middle workout. But it's movement that can be pretty difficult to judge. And at some point, if we keep running this, they're going to appear at some point. Mm-hmm. But we want it to be safe. How much did you think about judging and the ability for a judge to do their job at a high level with our support when you were planning some of these workouts?
Yeah, it's tough because consistency of judging is something that an issue that you're going to run into, whether it's, during the open all the way up to the games. It's just people will find issues with the judging of, this judge was making everybody go into the absolute bottom of their squat. This judge was kind of letting people go right around parallel.
Right.
So when we were looking at the movements that we were going to throw in, and yes, there are a lot of movements, but we did want to think about things that were easy to say, okay, here's the standard that you have to hit, and once it's hit, you're good. We'll count the rep and move on to the next one.
Yep. Now, equipment. Here's another thing. We're using a lot of equipment in this, different equipment. Again, I think it's a good thing because it really widens the scope of what you need to prepare yourself for. You can't just go practice. This is where people get hurt, in my opinion, is like ring dips, for example. That one year they were in the regionals and these guys were tearing their pecs left and right. I think part of it was that these guys were just practicing them way too much leading up to that weekend. And with this, we have dumbbells, we have barbells, we have box, we have bike, we have sandbags, we have the rig. And we have wall balls, the wall space like leaning up against the wall. There's so much to prepare for. Did you, when you were reviewing the workouts, were you trying to keep track of what was being used, what was not being used? Did you not want to use, for example, we didn't want to have the barbell in all three workouts, right? Were you trying to make sure there was a lot of different tools and toys to use so that, it just kind of can widen the fitness test because it's different using a kettlebell and a dumbbell?
Yeah. I wanted to use as much stuff as possible just because when you asked me to do this, I was like, all right.
Toys!
It's like, yeah, a kid on Christmas. But it's something that going to see a lot of competitions and being a spectator at a lot, I love seeing odd objects, things that you don't normally use every day in a CrossFit workout. But it's very tough to use those objects in, anything but a floater wad because you don't have 25 sandbags to use.
Right.
So I think we came up with an interesting way to be able to use those in an actual workout that, your spectators can come see and, see you do something that you normally wouldn't see in a CrossFit workout.
Yeah. And it's a challenge to the gym itself that, we kind of do like a little bit of an audit on this stuff that we have here, and should we add this, should we take away, should we get more of these and less of these? And this is going to put us in a spot where we probably should use some of the funds that are coming in to kind of update some of our equipment. And yes, now we get to use it in the competition, but now our gym gets to use it moving forward, which I'm really excited about. Just a little bit more toys to torture with people with programming. So let's do this. Let's dive into these workouts. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the workouts. I'm going off memory here because the workouts are on my phone, but I'm pretty sure I got it.
I got them here.
And then Adam's going to kind of touch on them. I think that the first one is I'm really excited to get him to talk about it because this was like when I asked him, like, hey, what's the one thing you want to do in this comp with the programming? This was it. And it ended up working out. We tweaked the time domains a little bit, and we'll tell you why. We'll open up that curtain a little bit. But I'm excited to tell this one because this was all Adam here. So basically, the workout's going to be this. You have 3 stations out on the floor, and you're going to work your way down the floor. You're not going to be staying in the same spot. So it's going to be what a lot of you guys have used to see as like weightlifting ladders where you're moving up to the next bar, new team comes in every heat. That's going to be the way that this works. Your station lasts 2 minutes long, and there are 2 movements in every station. There's 2 athletes. You guys are simply just going for max reps. There's no rule on transitions. You guys could stay at the same station for the entire time if you want, or you can rotate halfway through. When we practice this, that's essentially what we did. So here are the 3 stations. Station 1, dumbbell snatch, 50 for the guys, 35 for the girls. Scaled is 35 for the guys, 25 for the ladies. The other movement is burpee over dumbbell. So basically you're looking at the movements from 24.1. Dumbbell snatch, burpees over the dumbbell. How many reps can you guys get? 2 minutes. Switch when you want. Station number 2 is the echo bike, paired with the sandbag to shoulder. So it's not sandbag over shoulder. You actually have to get it to your shoulder. They call this a sandbag clean as well. And one hand has to be completely off that sandbag at the top. It's got to be on that shoulder. Station number 3 is box jump overs, 24 for guys, 20 for ladies. And I think we said we can go step overs for scaled.
Yep.
And then the barbell is shoulder to overhead, 155 for guys. I went 110 for ladies. Talk about that in a little bit. And that, so basically, those are the 3 stations. You have 2 minutes to accrue as many reps as you can. There's only going to be a 30-second transition. And that gives you enough time to recalibrate, make sure you're on the same page, adjust seat height of that bike if you need to, and also get that next team in, because it is going to be a rapid fire, hey, you guys are up, you guys are up, you guys are up, until every single team has gone through that gauntlet.
Yep.
Adam, why did you want to do something that was formatted in this way?
So I think the stations opportunity gives us, like we were saying before, an opportunity to use a lot of different equipment.
Yep.
You know, you don't need 8 Echo bikes. You don't need 8 sandbags. You just need one of each for the different weights, obviously. And then so station number 2 is where this idea came from. And then I worked backwards, and I wanted to get people tired for station 2. So 2 movements that, you know, consistently you should be able to move for 2 minutes.
Absolutely.
Whether you're doing burpees or doing dumbbell snatch, even if you need to transition halfway through, that should be 2 minutes of consistent movement. Then it's a quick transition to station 2, right? Obviously, you're going to accrue your maximum amount of reps on the bike, but we know the bike beats people up. So, you know.
That's putting it nicely.
Yes. And, you know, so the focus, I think, in station 2 is going to be on the Echo bike, but also if you can move that sandbag, just accruing those reps, every rep is going to count there. And then a quick transition to station 3, where you kind of have a mixed capacity, where you can say, if you have a strength athlete, they can do more on the barbell. Whereas if you have a conditioned athlete, you know, they're going to be able to accrue a lot of box jump overs. But 2 minutes is a tough to hang on to for anybody.
Yep.
So you're going to probably need to transition at some point there.
My thoughts on this workout as an athlete is I think you picked the perfect order of these 3 movements. Like, I don't think if you made station 3, station 1, station 2, it would be a different and worse test of fitness. This is the best way to order these movements because, like you said, everyone can rip through dumbbell snatches and burpees for 2 minutes. If you go all out, you're going to be very tired for the rest of the workout. So, and then you get to that station 2. I wouldn't want the cow bike in station 1 because even if you do sprint it and you're kind of ruining yourself for the rest of the workout, sort of, you know, a fresh sprint on the bike and a tired, hard effort on a bike could be a difference of 20, 30 calories.
Absolutely.
Like, we know that. So no one's getting to that bike fresh. So there will be no full-blown sprinting. It's just not going to happen. And then that last one, the box jump over shoulder to overhead, we practice this with slightly lower weight. That barbell at that point of the workout is going to feel awful. So there's going to be a lot of decision-making here with that barbell. It's like, hey, do you just stay at the barbell and let the jumper jump back and forth and just do as many reps as you can? Or at some point, you're going to have to make the change. And this is where we made the weights of this with both the sandbag and the shoulder to overhead that, yes, if you guys do have a strong athlete and the other person that's a little bit better at moving their body weight, it doesn't necessarily help you out that much.
No.
If you have specialists.
Right.
How much thought did you put into that with, you know, we made this, like we kept on talking about, hey, big guy friendly, small guy friendly. And to me, there's really no way to look at this workout and be like, hey, big guy, you're on there, small guy, you're on there. It just won't work.
No. You need to be able to do everything. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be as good as your partner at everything. Obviously, if you have a specialist, one person's going to do the majority of work at each part. But you can't just say, like, all right, you're on the sandbag and I'll bike for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to, you're not going to want to do that.
And what do you do? So, and also, again, this is why I like the order. What do you do after you bike for 2 minutes? Like, I couldn't go jump on a box, but I also know my leg drive won't be there for the overhead.
Right.
So it's a bike for 2 minutes at hard effort. Like, I can't do anything after that. So what do you do? Also, The sandbag to shoulder, 125 for guys, RX, 100 for ladies. And then the scale, there's 100 for guys, 75 for ladies. By the way, the RX and the Masters 40 plus, they're all the same weights. You're obviously just competing against other Masters. So I just wanted to throw that
somebody asked me about that too.
Did you?
They were like, oh, I was waiting for the workouts came out to see if Masters was lighter weights.
That's we can talk about that at the end if we have some time here. But no, if you're gonna have someone dumbbell snatch for 2 minutes, which you could do and it wouldn't crush you, you essentially are saying that person has to be on the bike after, because it would be really tough to dumbbell snatch, pull from the ground for 2 minutes, and then go do sandbag cleans. Mm-hmm. Like, you better have the posterior capacity of a games athlete if you're going to do that. So that's why, again, not only when and if do you transition in these 2-minute periods is important, but where you start and where you end in relation to the next station is going to be a huge impact on your team's score. Mm-hmm. So you might not even find the fittest team physically at the top of the leaderboard after this first workout, because strategy is such a big factor. And know what I love about this too? It's going to make people practice this workout 4 or 5 times, which is just going to be awful.
Yeah. Now, originally, my idea was 1 minute stations, and we changed it to 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Which I think was a great decision by you, because with 1 minute stations, you could have somebody stay on that movement for 1 minute. I mean, that's what we did technically. Yep. We did a minute of work at each movement. Mm-hmm. But I think you can't do it for 2 minutes.
Yeah, you ever have a coach come up to you at the end of a workout, like, you could do anything for a minute, and like in your head, like, shut the fuck up, you know? But here, if a coach came up to you and said, you could do anything for 2 minutes, nobody would buy that. Yeah. And you still have to have gas in the tank for the next station. I mean, we should not look at this as 2-minute workouts. It's a 6-minute workout, really, with a couple 30-second rests in there. So really,
it's the first workout.
Yeah, that's the first workout.
You got 2 more to do.
Last thing on this, then we'll move on to the second workout. Some comps, by default, always put the strength portion in the first workout. Were you thinking of doing that because there is a strength portion of the Bison Brawl, which is coming up? Or do you like this kind of like, I call it like an icebreaker? Like, you just kind of, there's not a lot of skill in this one. I would even say there's almost no skill in comparison to what we have else in the comp, where you like, people are nervous, maybe not fully warmed up, kind of on edge. This workout's just effort and strategy. What did you think about that in terms of making this the actual first workout?
Yeah, I think it's tough to lift in the first workout, especially early in the morning if you're used to working out in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. So I think we structured the 3 workouts that, this is kind of like, not to say it's a warm-up workout, but it's something, like you said, not a lot of high skill is involved. You know, you should need less warm-up for this one. Mm-hmm. And then, it kind of ramps up into the strength portion of the second workout and then the grit of the third workout.
All right. So now on to workout number 2. This is a 2-parter. 2A is you have 7 minutes to do this workout. You have to do 4 rounds. You and your partner, 15 toes to bar, 10 hang squat cleans, 115 for guys, 75 for ladies, scaled, you're 95, 65, and then 5 bar muscle ups. Scaled, you're doing knee raises, hang squat cleans at the lower weight, and then you're doing 5 pull-ups. So you and your partner, you split this however you want. You have to do that 4 times, okay? When you're done with that workout, you now have the rest of those 7 minutes to accrue as many toes to bar as possible. So your score for this workout will be as many reps as you can get in that 7-minute period. Immediately following that 7-minute period is the strength portion of this test. It's only 4 minutes long. It's going to be short. You have a preloaded bar somewhat, and now you have a complex of 2 deadlifts, 1 clean, 3 front squats. So that bar is going to be on the ground. You got to deadlift it twice. Then you have to go to a hang clean, power squat, whatever you want. And then you go do 3 front squats. Common question in a complex like this, if I squat clean it, does that count as my first front squat? It does not.
No. Yep. You have to establish the end of that clean, fully extended in the front rack, and then move into your 3 front squats.
So this is going to be, I don't think we're going to really touch on how we're going to score this yet, but it's a 2-part test. You have your gymnastics capacity. It's going to warm up your squat, and then you have the strength test. opening thoughts on this workout. We did this one as well.
Yep. I think it's easy to say, oh, let's split this up into, if you're good on the bar, good on the rig, do a majority of the work on the rig, and then I'll do a majority of the work, or maybe all the work on the barbell to begin with. But once you get to those max toes to bar, all of a sudden, everybody's gymnastics capacity is not going to be where they need it to be for max reps. So you do need to figure out a way to kind of split up this work as best as you can, but I think there's a couple ways that you can do that.
And we can tell you guys this now. Your barbell is going to be about 5 to 7 feet away from the rig, and whoever is working needs to be on the other side of the barbell, so away from the rig. So if you're on the gymnastics rig and you're doing your toes to bar, when you guys transition, you have to tag each other in.
Sure.
So it's not going to be this like, hey, stand next to me. Whenever I come down, you go right back up. You are going to lose time by transitioning. Not a lot, but you are going to lose time. But
it's also, you think about it, if you're breaking up the toes to bar, to make that tag, to get the other athlete to the rig, and then you kind of have to do that stutter step. Yep. There is time there.
Absolutely.
So that comes into strategy, I think.
Strategically, this one was a little tough. Like we kept it simple. We split the toes to bar 8-7. We each did 5 hang squat cleans, and then we split the bar muscle ups 3-2. And whoever did the bigger sets of toes to bar did the smaller sets of muscle ups, vice versa. It ended up being pretty even. And what I thought was the most unique part of this test, all right, I'm just talking about that triplet that we just talked about, was when you were done with bar muscle-ups, your 15 toes of bar were staring you in the face. And if you have a gymnast that is capable, you could go from that last muscle-up right into your toes of bar and just kind of cut out that transition. And if you have the capacity to do that, you do it. If not, you just keep switching. We kept on switching, if I remember correctly. Yes. The grip factor, that's another sneaky part of this workout. Even though you're not working the entire time, you're working and resting at different times, you're holding on to something the entire time. That's one thing about hang squat cleans that I think surprised people a lot. The weight selection on this is not heavy.
Nope.
Was that by design?
Yeah. It should be something that we wanted people to be able to move through and almost to be a kind of almost warm up for the lifting portion.
Yeah.
So something that you didn't have to worry about, really, it was more about speed for those first 4 rounds.
Yeah. And one thing I can say, it's going to be tough to judge, and this is going to be one thing that we're going to try to be as strict as we can with our judges as we meet with them and at the athlete briefing and standard video that we eventually put out there, is that usually on light hang squat cleans that are cycled really quickly and people are moving as fast as they can, it's really common for athletes to stand up and start getting the bar off the shoulder to go to the next rep before they actually stand it up.
Yep.
And I can tell you guys right now, warning to our athletes, we are going to be literally trying to no-rep that.
Correct.
That's going to be something that we're going to try to be really strict with, that you have to stand up at the top. Now, the actual squat, let's talk about the squat, because out of all 3 workouts, this is the only squatting you're doing until the very end of the competition. And we both feel very strongly that a squat needs to be tested.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like you did with this workout was, I'm someone that really likes to warm up for heavy squatting. And this is good enough for me, at least at the start. What we wanted to make sure we did is that, you guys have a heavy squat test. That is the strength test of this whole competition, is those 3 squats.
Yep.
Are those 3 squats. Did you feel that was the right complex? Did you consider any other complexes? Did you consider any other strength movements to be what we really wanted to test? Why the front squat?
So I wanted to do something that was multiple reps, that by the time you get there, you feel pretty good lifting. I felt great once we got to the lift. I was surprised how well I felt. And so I think we're going to be able to see some weights people hit that they probably haven't hit before. Mm-hmm. Comp day, the adrenaline's pumping. But we did want to stay away from, multiple hang cleans, mm-hmm. because, the bounce clean of, are you extending your elbows down at the bottom, or are you still, moving through that? So I think the front squat is something that, 3 reps you can grit through, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point with the hang clean. We've had hang clean at past competitions that we've run, and I'm not anti-bounce. Like, if you're allowed to do it, you do it. I'm personally terrible at it, and that just is what it is. But there's two thoughts there, just coming from my perspective, is it is a different test for someone that could bounce the bar multiple times. That's why it's only one clean.
Correct.
The other side of it is the safety component. Space is going to be a little tight for this workout. Not dangerous, but it's going to be a little tight. And you're going to have spectators just feet away from this barbell. And, we're still going to kind of figure out what direction everyone's going to be facing, what's safe, what's not safe, what's fair, right? We're literally going to be, hey, every barbell is going to be X amount of feet from the rig, period.
Yep. And where the weight's going to be and everything like that. Yep.
When I've seen this before at comps, I always get nervous, and this is part of the risk, is that when you do a lot of tired cleans that are really heavy, people are snatches, right? People start catching them forward, and they get walked forward. They get pulled forward by the weight, and all of a sudden now you're, with 300 pounds in some cases, running towards 18 people cheering for you with their phones out, not really paying attention to what's happening. Mm-hmm. That was part of our thought process.
Yep.
That, hey, it is going to be one clean. There's a little bit of risk there. But once you catch that barbell and once you're under control, now it comes down to just that brute strength. Can you lock in that front
And you're
squat?
staying in the same spot.
Exactly.
You're not walking forward on a front squat, unless that weight's pulling you forward, but it rarely happens. If that weight's going to pull you forward, you're probably going to fail the rep.
Yep. Did you have any thought of testing the snatch for strength, or was that just not something you want to touch yet?
Not something, just like there's weight changes and everything like that, especially in a partner competition. It's tough.
Yeah.
You have two people that are completely different in their snatch capacity. So, we have some athletes that can snatch 250 pounds.
Right.
If I'm doing a competition with somebody and I can only snatch 150, how are we going to figure that out? You know? So I think with this complex, it's going to be closer. You'll still have, big ranges, I'm sure, with some of the strength lifters, but that comes again when you have 4 minutes to lift into the strategy portion.
Yeah. Last thing, how many lifts do you think realistically? Consider the fact that the 4 minutes starts right after that 7-minute period. So essentially, by the time you guys are done working out, you're done with that max toes of bar, you can start changing your weights, all that stuff. You're probably maybe looking at 3 lifts each.
And you also have to think about how can you work the weights, because with weight changes and everything like that takes time. You want to get your maximum score possible, and it's a combination of the 2 lifts that you do. So that's got to be planned out.
Yeah, definitely has to be planned out. The weights that are on the bar, like if you could just smack your 45s on there and go from there. But if you're not strong enough to do that, you're going to have to account for a little bit of extra time to take weights off and on. And we are going to be pretty strict with where the weights that are not being used need to be. So they're not going to be directly behind you in case someone takes a fall. They can't be directly in front of you in case you start walking forward. There's going to be a specific spot for your weights. And if the weights that are not being used, if they're not there and they don't have clips on your bar, the lift won't count. So this is another thing where, guys, I know you're strong, I know you're fit, but you guys have to put some serious amount of thought into all these little details to get your possible score. And your score there will obviously be the combined weight of your 2 lifters.
Yep.
And then we're going to, we'll talk about how we're going to actually score the event itself down the road. So that is workout 2. Workout 3 is my personal favorite just because it's unique. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult. I think this is the one that we were just like, holy crap, this is a lot tougher than we thought. And I actually got asked by someone last night, why did you do it this way? What's the point? And we're going to dive into it. I want to give you the workout and give Adam his time to talk about it. The workout is for time, 800-meter row for guys, 600 meters for the ladies, 30 wall walks, 60 synchro kettlebell lunge, RX 35 for guys, 26 for ladies, and then we're going to go 25-15 for the scale division, and then 90 wall balls. So it's a pretty simple workout. It's a chipper. You're rowing, you're wall walking, you're synchro kettlebell lunge, you're 90 wall balling. However, during those 90 wall balls, somebody needs to be upside down. Handstand is against the wall. I got that question on Instagram last night. It's a normal handstand facing out. You'll be able to see your person that's doing the wall balls because the wall balls will be done in the middle of the gym. We're going to attach wall ball targets to the rig, and that's where you'll be doing them. Where was the inspiration from this workout?
So I think we wanted to make the last workout the most difficult. Mm-hmm. You kind of got to dig deep at the end of the comp. It's been a long day, but you still have 90 wall balls staring at you as the last thing you have to do. and they're going to be tired shoulder wall balls.
Yes.
Like there's no rest for your shoulders at any point when you get there. So it's definitely a grit, dig deep workout.
And again, big guy, small guy, who favors it more? This one, it really evens out, in my opinion, because the big athletes, the strong athletes, they get the advantage on that initial row. And we both can't wait to watch people row on that, because there's in my opinion, there's two ways to do this. You split it in half.
Yep.
All right, 400 for the guys, 300 for the girls, or you switch, you split it into quarters. And again, that's going to be something you guys have to practice, because when you transition, you lose time, but you could also row at a much higher rate. But I am expecting to see near max effort rowing on this workout from
100%.
every athlete.
Yep.
Like we're going to see guys pulling a 115. We're going to see seeing girls pull a 128. It's going to be fun. And then that's just the buy-in. Now you have 30 wall walks, split it however you want. So if you do have a gymnast, they can be, and I think that number is important, 30.
Yep.
In that even if you have a specialist, they can't do all 30.
No.
They're going to have to maybe, I can't imagine them doing more than 20 without needing a break.
And just like workout 2, the other athlete will be behind the rower. So everybody will be the same distance away. So you're going to have to make that tag. So how many times do you want to transition? Again, that's going to add to your time and take away from time that you have to work.
So you're looking at you're about halfway through. It's only a 12-minute cat, and we'll get into that in a little bit too. So when I say you're halfway through, time-wise, you're about halfway through, because I think that portion will take about 6 minutes. Maybe some pairs get it done in 5. We'll see. But now the rest of the workout is you guys are both working out at the same time. So this is where I think it's a really cool curveball, especially at the end of the day. You guys are tired at this point. You put yourself through the blender on that rower. You guys pretty much both went to max capacity on your own wall walks. Now you guys have to, for the rest of the workout, work at the same time. You have to work off each other.
Correct.
And this is going to be really cool. So the 60 synchro kettlebell lunges, stick with me for a sec, okay? The first 15 the first 30 are front rack. It's only one kettlebell, so it's not heavy. But you guys have to be standing at the same time at the end of the lunge. The first 15 are on one arm, the next 15 on the other arm, front rack. And now you're 30 lunges into the workout. The decision comes down to, do we put this thing down or do we go into the next 30, which is we're going to do 15 reps with it overhead in one hand. And then at 15, you have to switch hands again and go to the other hand. So basically you're doing 30 front rack lunges, synchro, and then 30 overhead lunges, synchro. And you do have to switch arms when you get to that halfway point. What's the inspiration there? Because that was a lot tougher than I thought it was.
It was tougher than we thought it was, but I think if it was the end of the workout, you could have done it unbroken.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
We put it down after the front rack lunges, took a little break, 5-10 seconds, and then went into the overhead lunges. But I don't think you have to do that. Okay. But then you have to realize you're not done after those 60 lunges.
It's not even close.
And we wanted something that was easy to decide synchro, right? Because synchro movements are always tough to judge.
Yep.
This one doesn't matter whether you lunge 5 seconds before I do, as long as we're standing up at the same time. That's the completed rep, and then you go into the next one.
Yep.
Yeah. So a little bit easier on the judges, I think. But yeah, that's the question: is do you want to go unbroken there?
When we practiced this, we did this with the 35-pounders, and we're both pretty good at lunging. Like, I wouldn't call it a strength or weakness. We're pretty good at them, and it got hard at the end, but it never got to a point where you couldn't do the lunge, but you started to lose the stability. Mm-hmm. Do you think this would have changed the workout completely if you went for your traditional 53-pound kettlebell for guys, 35-pound kettlebell for the ladies?
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, I think the wall ball capacity would have been completely shot.
Yeah.
By the time you were finished with the lunges.
And I want to see teams do this unbroken. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to see teams be like, yo, you get it, your arm gets a break, but it's 60 lunges in a row. It's hard, and they're not going to be fresh.
Right.
And you still have those 90 wall balls staring you in the face. What was the inspiration behind this last curveball that you guys are going to try to get 90 wall balls done? But the judge will be standing next to the athlete doing the wall balls, and they will tell you when you're allowed to pick that ball up. They're going to be looking at your teammate. And just so if you don't know the layout of our gym, the wall's about 25 feet away from where the wall ball person is. And that person's going to be staring at the handstand holder. The second they get upside down with control, they're going to say, go. And that's when the athlete can start ripping through the wall balls. What happens here? Does the person getting wall balls, do they get tired, then you make the switch? Or the person upside down is be like, bro, I can't hold this anymore. We have to switch. What was the inspiration behind that?
As far as me personally, that was the handstand hold became the problem, is that, you're doing wall balls, you just did lunges, so the legs are pretty tired, but you can do wall balls, even though you have to like jump every rep, it seems. But I got to a point where I just couldn't hold a handstand,
right?
And I was like, my shoulders were shot. So
just so you know, we're going to say no butt on the wall on those handstand holds,
right?
Just so people know, it's going to be all shoulders holding up there.
Yep. And, you're very good at wall balls, but you could have gone probably 15, 20 reps every time up there, but I just could not hold myself upside down.
I'll tell you what, I have capacity. I'm not fast at them, and my leg stamina is not good. So after those lunges, you get to those wall balls, like you might be like, oh, wall balls aren't that bad for me. Go do 60 lunges and then go try to do some wall balls. And what I love about the workout is even though you get to overhead failure on the handstand, you go there, I'm like, all right, thank God I don't have to be in a handstand. Your shoulders still get taxed on wall balls.
100%.
So it's like, what do you even do?
Especially with tired legs.
Yeah.
Now you're like, what do I try to do? I try to jump as high as I can and then put as much force from my shoulders into the wall ball as possible.
And, again, big guy, small guy, you can, if you do have extreme specialists on this, I bet there are some teams out there that could say like, hey, I can hold that handstand for 3 minutes. Can you do 90 straight wall balls? That would be the extreme. I do think that can be done. I would love for a team to try it. Much easier said than done, especially when you're fresh, than at the end of a competition that you've already worked out multiple times, and then after all that other previous work, because the workout is really well put together in that your legs won't be fresh, your shoulders will be fresh no matter what, and your heart rate will be very high.
Yes.
So it's going to be I think that's going to be my favorite one to watch, because it kind of encompasses everything that we've talked about in terms of what we want to test. Fitness, teamwork, strategy, communication, grit. It's all going to be a part of that. Lower body capacity, upper body capacity. So that's going to be, in my opinion, that's going to be like the staple event, and I'm glad that we ended that way. It's also going to be the longest one. Adam, 12-minute cap.
Yeah.
Do you think this can be finished?
If you were asking me, I'd say no way. But I've seen people work out, and I've seen people get into that dark zone, especially at the end of a day. And if you're fighting for a podium spot and you need to, I think this can be done.
Yeah, it won't be done often. I would not be surprised to see no teams finish this, but I'm going to be cheering for at least one team to finish. And if you do plan on finishing this, you and your partner, you better be sprinting your ass off from the start, and you better go everything with those 60s and 90s unbroken. You almost have to.
Yep.
Maybe one or two transitions on the wall handstand holds.
And you got to be smart on the wall walks. Yeah. Because you don't want to overtax yourself or anything like that. Yep. You don't want to be coming down from a wall walk, say, give me 10 seconds, I'll do another one.
Even the order, who does what first, is going to matter.
Yep.
It's going to be a really fun workout to watch and watch you guys plan for. So that wraps up the workouts, guys. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I should touch on this. In the scale division, you're going to be doing bear crawls instead of the wall walks. The lunges and the wall balls will be the same, though. Instead of holding a handstand for the scale division, you're going to be holding the top of the push-up, which is going to be a very similar stimulus, if not identical.
I think bear crawls almost beat you up worse than wall walks sometimes.
Definitely
jacks
up the heart
there, and you want to keep moving. So yeah, I think that's going to be fun too.
Very similar stimulus, if not the same exact one. So that wraps up the workouts for the Bison Brawl, and hopefully that kind of opens up the door in terms of like, all right, how do we go about these? They're not just cool, fun workouts. There's a lot of thought that goes into them, and Adam did a really good job there. But just to wrap it up, what to expect from us moving forward. We still have a few like loose ends to kind of tie up and firm up, and we have time, but it's going to definitely be a priority. The communication factor is something that I just want to put out there. Most of our communication for now will be sent out through the CrossFit Bison Instagram, whether they're announcements, new workouts, sign-up registration, reminders. As it starts to fill up, we will tell you how many spots are left. We're going to highlight some of the gyms. Union City, CrossFit Union City is one of them right now. They're leading the way with the amount of registrants from one gym. We want, but once we get closer to the event, I would say in September, we'll have our email list, and that's when you guys will probably expect a weekly email from us with reminders, parking information, warm-up information, vendors, sponsors, all that kind of stuff. And then once we get the number out of how many teams we have, we will release the prize pool, and there will be cash prizes, definitely for the RX and Masters. We're not sure about Scaled yet. We're still working on that. From that communications perspective, Ramsden, any thoughts on there? Again, try to use your experience as an athlete and spectator in terms of like, all right, this isn't good enough. This was great. What do you think we should be holding ourselves to standard-wise with communication?
Yeah, I think the more communication, the better. You always have questions, especially if you're coming to a gym you've never been to about, where do I park? Where are the vendors going to be? Where's, is there food or coffee close? There needs to be communication about that to make the experience for the athlete great, the spectator great. Take all that into account.
Scoring, we're using Conquest Sweatworks. They are a really good system. They've been around forever. That's where our registration is also going through. So if and when you guys sign up, that's the site that you're taken to. The link is in that CrossFit Bison bio, and I'm going to be sending out a bunch of links to gyms in the surrounding area to make it easy for you guys to sign up. But that is where the scoring platform will come from. We have some scoring updates that will, in terms of how we're scoring some of the events coming in the next couple months. Standard video. We will likely use NB Productions. I haven't talked to Nick yet, but we will put out a very comprehensive, detailed standard video because I'm going to tie in the Zoom call to this as well. The one thing I could see us running into problem-wise, logistically, schedule-wise, is going over these movements will take a really long time.
Correct.
And we like having this many movements. I think I counted, there's like 13 or 14 movements in the actual competition, which is awesome. But if we go over every one of those details, you know how people are with questions and everything, they might take an hour.
Yep.
So we're going to put together a really good standard video. We'll make sure that we get that out to you. But I'm even thinking about maybe us putting together a Zoom call the night before the competition to really get as many questions answered at that point as possible. I've seen legends done this before. You can ask a question in comments, and we'll have someone monitoring that, and we'll get, Adam and I can answer them, trading off one by one, so that we can make that check-in pre-comp meeting at the start of the competition smoother, quicker, easier. Sometimes those are my least favorite part of the competition.
100%, yeah.
Because and I don't want to say dumb questions. I mean, a lot of us have little anxiety things. Like I remember I just competed at 908 barbells and beers, and I was like, I had a bad groin from the semifinals or quarterfinals, whatever it was back then, and I was nervous about doing some of the lunges, and they're like, and that's when I found out that we didn't have to alternate legs. I was like, oh, thank God. Step ups as well. So those meetings are really important, but they do tend to drag on. And I think if we can get some of these questions about standards and flow answered prior to that morning, it would be a big deal.
Yeah, and it's not just, silly questions. There are things that we haven't thought about,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we try to think about everything, logistics, flow, layout of the gym, but some things are just overlooked. And it doesn't matter how many people you have looking at it, mistakes can be made, or things that you just didn't think about that somebody, might be important to somebody. So we do want to get those questions answered pre-comp as much as possible, I think would be great.
Great. Well, thanks you guys for tuning in. That was Bison Brawl episode number 2. We'll have at least 2 more. I would say expect our next one to be sometime August or September, probably September, as that's when we're going to really have a good idea how many teams are signed up, what the schedule is going to look like. And, a lot's going to happen between now and then that things might come up, and we'll kind of share that with you when that time is appropriate. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.